Morning, everybody. It is 8:20 a.m., June 6th. Welcome to my channel. Little delayed start today, but let's get into it. Yesterday's markets were friggin' nuts. So you had a call, right, that happened with Xi and Trump, and it was pretty much positive, right? Markets started to go back up. Then there was this feud between Trump and Elon Musk, and Tesla had its largest losing day ever. I think it went down 17%. Wild day. At the same time, Fed Kugler was speaking. It was crazy. Big volatility, big swings in the market. Pretty nuts. These markets are just nuts. I mean, basically. I mean, and now all that movement down, whatever. Where are we at? Balance. Why? Because we're waiting for unemployment and non-farm payrolls at 8:30. So just like I always preach, most trader prices, magnets, walls, whatever you want to call them, they're the comfort zone for the market when they want information. They go back to equilibrium. And then once we get the new data, the market decides what it wants to do. Okay? Now, let's get into this. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile, volume profile to find structure in the markets along with supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. That is the way I look at the markets, all right? Anchored VWAPs. And of course, my trusty market internals is my bread and butter. Okay? Shows me what's under the hood of the markets. All right? Now, hopefully, you guys join me every morning. Give you the market story. Have that cup of water, cup of coffee, whatever. Driving your car, put me on. Okay? And I give you the story. Economic calendar, the market news, the leaders and the laggards. And of course, more than that, daily charts, hourly charts, and then I give you long and short trade scenarios in the NASDAQ and the ES futures. Okay? And then I added the internals recap, right, which is very important because you can see what I saw yesterday under the hood. Okay? Okay. Let's move on to what's moving markets. What's moving markets? Give me 1 second here. Just want to put my trusty little access pad up here. Give me 1 second. This delayed start. Alrighty. Let's see. Alright, that Bitcoin percentage is always not right now, but let's see. Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up. I don't know how much percent because that's obviously wrong. So it's at 104,450. Silver. Ooh, I'm liking my silver. I'm liking my position in silver. It's finally making a move. All right, over 35, $36.29 an ounce. All right, Russell up 0.53, ES up 0.43, Nasdaq's up 0.41, the Dow's up 0.38, the dollar's up 0.29. 10-year yield is up 0.20, gold is up 0.15, crude is flat basically but down 0.11, 30-year bonds being sold but only slightly down 0.14, Ethereum down almost 2%, the VIX is down 2.65% because it's recovered, right? Covered right back up for the data to come out in about a little more than 5 minutes. All right, and we'll go right to that when that data pops out, okay, or comes out. Mag 7 Plus. Here we go. Who's leading the pack? Well, Tesla had its largest losing day ever, and it's getting some love. There was a rumor that Trump and Musk are going to have a call. Then the White House just came out and said they are not having a call. Okay, it is pretty nasty stuff between them on Twitter. I would say more on Elon's part. He's really going after him. It's kind of crazy, kind of nuts, kind of crazy. So Tesla's up 4.37%, Coinbase up 1.87%, Amazon up 1.05%, Google's up 1.03%, Meta's up 0.73%. Okay, is there a laggard? Yes. Broadcom did report earnings yesterday, and they slightly beat. Slightly. Now they had a run up, boy, up into these earnings, and they're down 2.55%. They're a key in the semiconductor sector. They're a key in the QQQ weighting and the key in the technology weighting as well. Okay, that's why I have them on this chart. Okay, it's not a sexy ticker, right? But it's heavily weighted. That's why I have it up here. Okay, moving on. Is there a top sector stock to talk about? Not really. Moving on to sectors. All right, let's look at the sectors. Yes, that's Tesla. Discretionary is up 0.74, followed by financials up 0.41. Now remember, it's caused it a bounce from the sell-off yesterday is why these markets are up. Obviously, these are based on the close of yesterday. So this is not shocking, okay? So there's no laggards here. Everybody's waiting for the data to drop, okay? That's what usually happens the day before a big data release, all right? And yesterday, how we sold off, that was all bought up, and that was very predictable. That's basically, I call it a de-risking, because you're going to go back to the mean on data. No one wants to hold the bag. Before usually big data releases, even if there's a big move, there's a de-risk move back. De-risk move back, because no one wants to hold a position in front of this big data. Okay? So shorts get scared and buyers capitalize on it to go back to the mean. All right? That is dropping in 3 minutes. That is dropping in 3 minutes. I'll take this time to just go over internals yesterday. Okay, here's the internals yesterday. It was a wild day. Started out a little weak, then got strong, and oh man, this looked real strong, because if you were watching that market, it looked like, oh boy, this is a big move, and then boop, back down, back up, right? What was these ratios at the end of the day? 1 point to 1 point. You weren't gonna get a really big outsized move here. The markets were not that weak or strong. Look at the ADDs, okay? Infotech, yes. But honestly, this is at the end of the day, okay? So obviously these are positive here and stuff like that. All right, that is your market internals. Recap. All right, we're going to slide over here and we're going to look at the economic calendar because it's coming up, okay, and see what we're looking at here. Okay, so all right, so what do we have? Non-farm payrolls. We're expecting 130. Previously 177. Now the ADP employment change on Wednesday was a miss. Unemployment is expecting 4.2, and we had 4.2 before. They're expecting no change. We had Fed Bowman speaking at 10 a.m. That's what's the economic calendar today. And yeah, so we'll go to this in a minute. Let's look at what's moving markets here. Okay, so you can see here, stock futures climbed ahead of the final trading day of the week, with investors assessing implications between the verbal brawl between Trump and Musk. The main averages finished lower after a choppy session on Thursday. Trump and Musk bust up, especially pulled down shares on electric car maker Tesla. Okay, and then just like I said, hopes for progress in global trade negotiations sparked by a call between Trump and China's counterpart Xi. Markets are also factoring a second consecutive rise in weekly initial jobless claims, as well as comments from as well. So what I said, Kansas City Federal Reserve President Jeff Schmidt expressing worries over the impact of Trump's sweeping tariffs on inflation. Okay, Trump-Musk feud. All right, this is all the feud. They went back and forth with each other. Non-farm payrolls, that's what we're waiting for. Chinese stocks lower after Trump's Xi call. Interesting. Oil on pace for weekly gains. All right. We got about 10 seconds, so we'll go here, see the drop, and then I will go to the 1 hour futures chart and actually look at the price action here. Okay. Boom. Here we go. Data dropped. All right. Data dropped. All right. So what do we have here? We have a better expected non-farm payrolls jobs added. Unemployment rate stayed the same. Market initially is liking it right here. That's going to become a demand zone right there. Okay, initial move is up. Initial move is up. Okay, I just gave you the results. Unemployment stayed the same, in line, and non-farm payrolls beat. Non-farm payrolls beat. We added more jobs than we thought. So that's a nice little wick. I would guess this would be a nothing burger. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is a nothing burger. That non-farm payrolls, it's a slight beat. Okay, it's a slight beat. Unemployment stayed the same. That was in line. And where are we at, right? Let's look at the hourly chart here. Where are we at? Let's zoom out a little bit. Now, like I said, market's liking this initial. This makes sense to me. Okay, totally makes sense. Why is that? Well, you can't stay in a balanced area. Okay, this is where we just came out of, right? And you're right. I just want to show you this right here is the most traded price of yesterday. Look where that move started, right there. Remember, magnets, walls, can't say it enough. That's the most traded price of yesterday. That's where the market was hanging out until the data came out. And now you're hanging out at the most traded price of the week, right? So anytime you hang out at one of those walls or magnets, you're going to move away from it. Either way, don't know, but that's what happens because that's all our markets do. All our markets do is balance, trend, a little balance, trend, a little balance, trend. That's all the markets do. That's all they're ever doing. Okay? It's not that complicated, but yes, price action can make it be like, what is going on, right? And then after the fact, it always looks like, oh, that was the balance. Oh, right? Because you never know when you're going to break out of it, right? All right, we'll get back to this. Now that the news is there, the market now has to digest it. All right, we're going to look at some more news. All right, we know a lot of the news. Let's just look at the juice. All right, so let me just refresh this for you guys. Let's refresh it. Let's refresh it. All right, so a couple things here. Let's see, White House Trade Advisor Navarro. I expect U.S.-China meeting to take place within 7 days. That was at 8:32, right after the data. This could spark markets to go a little higher. Okay, this could expect the markets to go higher. All right. Now, on tap for the day as well, Fed Bowman speaks at 10. Now look, at 1:30, Trump signs executive orders. 2 o'clock, Trump at swearing in ceremony. Okay. I hope I'm done with a trade before noon. I don't want to be caught in this crossfire. Okay. Now, the one thing that I will tell everybody on this channel, and I've told a couple of my friends about it, this right here, this launch voice news is awesome. It's basically a squawk box. You just have it on in the background. Even though it's delayed, it's only delayed 5 seconds. So it's kind of cool because you'll hear him talk and it's only 5 seconds from the wire. So he'll say he'll say something, Trump just said blah 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 blah, and then you look and the market reacts. So even though it's 5 seconds delayed, it's actually right on the money when the move happens. I don't trade news, so I don't care. I just want to make sure if he's saying something, I'm not going to enter a trade. Okay? It gets kind of nuts. All right. One thing I want to look at real quick before we get into any more news, let's look at the watch list here. Let's look at what this market's doing after the data came out. Okay, so the 10-year yield is up. The 10-year yield is back up. 30-year bonds are being sold. The VIX is down. Okay. Gold, let's see, silver is pushing even higher. All right. So 10-year yield had a nice push down the other day. And now it's going back up. It's a nuts market. It's a nuts market. All right. Let's go back to news. All right, and let's look at certain things happen. All right, we talked about the Tesla shares rebound as Musk. We saw that. Broadcom rides in AI chip demand to deliver upbeat revenue forecast. Musk Trump breakup puts 22 billion of SpaceX contracts at risk, jolting U.S. space program. Let's see. Nippon Steel, U.S. seeks 8-day pause in litigation to resolve deal concerns. All right. Like I said, I'm just going to go over anything that's market moving. Let's see. Netflix, the company continues to add more live content for viewers hungry for real-time entertainment, including the Tyson vs. Paul boxing match, National Football League games, and most recently the Tudum live fan event that showcase upcoming TV shows. Okay. Let's see here. Broadcom, Morgan Stanley raises target price to 270 from 260. All right. DocuSign, JP Morgan cuts target price to 77 from 81. Okay. PVH, JP Morgan cuts target price to 76 from 99. Alrighty. And let's just see maybe why stocks are moving or not today. Get an extra boost. John Deere, they got an upgrade. Hold to a buy. What else here? Prudential, hold to a buy. Let's see the downgrades today. This will tell us there's really not a downgrade. I mean, price target changes. I'm not going to get into all that. I'd rather go into other stuff here. Moving on. Oh, we can look at breadth charts. Look at some breadth charts together. Here's my number one, or not my number one. But remember, this tells the tale of the story right now. 50% of stocks, basically, 47%, okay, to be exact, stocks are above their 20-day moving average. That tells you 50-50. That's 250 stocks above it and 250 stocks below it. That tells you why we're in balance, all right? Just that alone. That's that alone. Now, let's look at the Fed Watch tool. After this, this just came out, all right? We're still at a 97% pause for the next Fed meeting. All right, let's look at some bullish percent indexes. All right, let's look at the let's look at the S&P 500 first. All right, 71% of stocks are on buy signals. Let's look at the NASDAQ. 74% are on buy signals. All right, now let's look at the overall markets. Right, the NYSE. See that? Goes down to 58%. Now remember, this is maybe like 2,800 stocks. All right, 58%. That just shows you our overall market, not the market cap weight. Actually, how our market moves is more like 50-50. Okay, more like 50-50. Let's look at the NASDAQ composite. Okay, that is at 53. So just to make that clear, you have two stock exchanges, the major ones, NASDAQ exchange and NYSE exchange. I think it's over 2,800 stocks in each. They are in parity, right? Now, the AAI sentiment, let's see, the investor survey. Bullish. How many percent are bullish? Only 32%. Okay. How many are bearish? 41%. That's, to me, everybody is in flux in this investment survey. Okay. Look at the extremes. Right? Look at where we were here. That's an extreme number. 62% were bearish. Okay, that's the extremes. If I go back to the bull, this was probably a good indicator to be like we were definitely going to get a bounce. Look at where sentiment was back on March 18th. 18% were bullish. Okay. April 7th was that low. Right. April 8th. Okay. Right there. All right. That's the overall breadth charts for you. All right. Overall breadth charts for you. Let's move on to our daily charts. All right. So, market moved higher yesterday. Opened here, right? and it was a wild day. Let's just zoom in. Wild day, and yeah, pretty much this engulfed this day, and actually engulfed the prior day, right? And it was a whole lot of nothing. Okay, wild, but a whole lot of nothing. Didn't tell us much. Okay, look at the market. This is last week's highs. You closed back inside last week's range. You went outside of it, closed back inside of it. Almost hit the 9 EMA daily. Where are we at now? 529. Let's call it 30. 529.30. You're at the upper third of yesterday's range. Okay, upper third of yesterday's range. This is a QQQ, by the way. I usually start with the SPY. So I'll just reverse it today. All right. NASDAQ futures. Let's look at it. So NASDAQ futures. Look at that nice white candle, which would be bullish, right? Came all the way and opened here. You're at here now. See, you're at the upper third of prior day's session, right? We still have last month's highs and last week's highs right there. Couldn't take it out. Okay, that was resistance. All right, moving on to SPY. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. All right, here's your SPY. Let me get rid of that for right now. Okay, so you pretty much engulfed the last two sessions, right? Opened here, closed here. There's last week's highs. You closed right on last week's highs, right there, right at last week's highs. Hit the 9 EMA daily and bounced. Hit the 9 EMA daily and bounced. Okay, here's last month's highs. So where are we at now? 597. Let's call it 90. 597.90. 597.90. You're right at yesterday's opening. You're in the upper third of yesterday's session. Okay. So we're going to start to have another balance here. Interesting, right? Interesting. Look at futures. Look at that. Okay. Opened here. Now you're up at the previous two sessions highs. In the futures, last month's highs, last week's highs were still within the range of last week. We never even attempted a breakout of last week's. Yes, we did yesterday. I'm sorry. A little bit. You had the wick here. That would have probably been a nice short, right? All right. Moving on to our triple-headed monster. That's your bond market, which is a little squirrely. All right. Let's right here. So you had that dip down. Now you're getting bought up. Yields. So this means bonds are being sold because the yields go up. And we're just hanging out in this area. There's really not much to see. All right, moving on to dollar. Dollar, right? Remember I said this is kind of probably bottoming out. You're getting a nice push up from the dollar. Let's see if you can break this here and move up. Okay? Don't know if that will happen. VIX. Our VIX is at a 17.3. We're just in this range, right? Boop, 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 boop. So still decent moves in the VIX. Okay, we're going to move on now to hourly charts. We were just there, and you can see here, right? Let's just analyze this together. I'm going to push this down. Okay, so we can all see it better. I'm going to go very quickly over this because it's pretty simple. You have a trend line here. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, trend line here. You got a touch, a touch, a touch, a touch, a touch, holding this little uptrend, right? You have last week's highs acting as resistance. 1 hourly candle, 2, 3 resistance right there, right? Yes, look at now. This is the month to date, week to date view. They're together because the month started this week, actually Sunday night, right? And the week started that same time. So that's why they're together. They will separate. That's supporting the market, and the market's pushing up. Okay? So what has the market done? Right? Let's look at it. Pushed up to the previous week's highs here. Couldn't sustain it. Dropped down to major balance. We tried to move lower. We tried to move lower. This is the day where I was like, if this holds, it's bullish. We pushed up. And then what did I say? If we make this the most traded price of the week, that's bullish, right? Well, we held, pushed up, right? And then you played around and went up to the last week's highs. You dropped all the way down to where? Pretty much ultimate balance and this trend line. Then you got bought up in the overnight, consolidated for news. Boom, news came out. We're going to start working off this. So what am I saying? This has been the playground. All right, so this would be considered your little balance highs here, and there's a big supply zone there. Okay, what do we do if we go there? Do we break out? We haven't yet. I don't know. Right, that is your ES, and this is your hourly charts. Right, I didn't put the graphic up, but I'm trying to not take too much time. Okay, here's your NASDAQ. Here's your NASDAQ. Let's move this down. Believe it or not, you can see the shaded areas now on my charts. Can't believe NinjaTrader finally gave you the ability to show overnight activity versus the real-time trader. So every dark is the real-time trading hours. That's the actual market opens, and every gray is overnight activity. Okay, so it's nice to be able to have that on my charts. All right, now we zoom out here. What do we have? We have a pretty nice trend line in the the NASDAQ, right? So it started here. You got 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, 4 touch, right? Pretty significant trend line. I only put them on my chart if they're significant. If they're significant, right? And look at the NASDAQ. How beautiful it's been looking. Meaning it's respecting ultimate balance, right? We know 21435 is the most traded price of the rolling year in this year. Okay, that's major level. So once we took that, found acceptance, pulled back, we went right up here, consolidated, broke out, tried to break last week's highs, couldn't. Then where did we come? In the overnight, you came right back to ultimate balance in this trend line, got bought up, and you waited for news right at the week to date, month to date VWAP, and now where are you? At the most traded price of the week. Okay, and what is this? Last week's highs. So that's really, everybody's going to be looking at this level today and say, what do we do here? Do we just hit here and go back? Because this is the playground, really. Okay, all right, that's it for the hourly charts. Okay, moving on to the market profile, volume profile. Hopefully everybody's with me. Whoever's with me while I switch workspaces. All right, now you know it's time for market profile, volume profile. All right. I say I'm trying to be speedy here. Let's move this up. Okay. And let's look at the weekly profile, right? So we got excess value area, and we have this little bit of excess. A lot of movement to the upside, right? A lot of volume more to the upside than the downside, right? Look at the levels. We're above the most traded price of the week. We're above the most traded price of yesterday. We're above the major level 59.15, which is your most traded price of this year in the ES. Notice, where did the price come down to yesterday? You can't make that up, okay? Now, recap rest today really quickly. I just did, but I'll just show it here. All right, it was a wild day. Opened up here, drove down, drove all the way up, and you were like, woo boy, hit last week's highs, and then it was a bunch of games until you went like this and then bounced and closed here. Okay, now let's look at this market and look at levels. Okay, What is the significant levels today? We already know last week's high is going to be significant. We already know the most traded price of the year in this demand zone has been significant. So significant levels here, right? This level right here, 59.28, that is a confluence low, lines up with this big 59.15 most traded price. If this gets broken, we could fall, right? But then you got this big level here. All right, so that's number one. All right, number two is this area. That is your last week's highs. That is your yesterday's highs. That is your overnight highs. Prices right there. You have single prints right now in the profile, emotional buying, because of the non-farm payrolls and possible meeting setting up with China in 7 days. Okay? That's right here. This is significant. Okay? Okay, because now we showed we couldn't go lower. Price is back up here in the upper range of yesterday. We're inside yesterday's range. Okay, you just came down here and you came up here. Does this market today have enough information to break out? I don't know. Right? We could just be in a playground of balance. So it's pretty simple today. Okay. Let's get right into scenarios here. All right. Let me look if there's another inflection point that I could be like, okay, you do have a demand zone here. Now, you know what? There's a demand zone here. So let's break out the price action. I always forget to do that. That's the overnight price action, right? Let's move this back a little bit. That's the overnight price action. There is a demand zone here with the most traded price. So we're going to have to mark that off too. Okay. So right in here, I would say that is horrible. That is really bad. We got a demand zone here, another one here, right? However, we'll get into it. And you got the most traded price of the week here. You know, there's a lot of stuff that could be defended by bulls. Okay, but I'll explain that in a little bit. Okay, I'll explain that in a little bit. All right, let's do scenarios. Let's get this going here. Okay, we are going to start out with the bullish case here. Now, you know you have emotional buying right here, right? But now you're above a significant level. Okay, so what would I look for? Maybe we go into this supply, pull back right here, and maybe there's a demand zone in here, right here, and you just do this, boop, bounce, hold, hold. You can move higher. Now, do you break yesterday's highs? I don't know, but you could try. This is all supply, so this ain't not gonna be easy, but it could be because you could shake all the shorts out. Okay, that is probably my favorite because you're not going back into range. The farther we fall back, longs will liquidate their position. So this is why I don't want it to go that far. That would be my number one. Okay. Yes, we can pull back to these scenarios. I don't think these are probable. I'm actually not even going to put them on there because I don't really like them. The only one I would like is if we came down, pushed down through all this mess, broke this confluence low, 59.30 to 59.28, and you hit into this demand in the major level. Okay, if I saw real thin in the profile, bounce, this could make you bounce back up. Okay, because that is a major level. I think all in here, it's probably going down. Okay, moving on to the bear side. Okay, now we know this area is a very key area, last week's highs. So if we push up in here, let's say we even break yesterday's highs and last week's highs, and we then come back through it, well, that's probably lower high. You're probably going to want to come back through here. You'll probably take out these single prints and at least take some off here. Now, balance rules say Once you go up to balance highs, now you probably go back to the other side of balance. That's why I'm saying I don't like anything below here. If you take this out, you're probably going to take out all this crap, and people are going to be in balance, and you're going to hit the major level. If you happen to break that, then it could be all crazy, and this could really rip. Remember what I said, seasonality, sell May, go away, is sell at the end of May, because you usually bottom in June. Okay? Because this is all I'm going to look at really for my best short is up in here. And the reason why is because if everybody's long here and all the way back here, and there's some weakness, all these longs will have to puke and liquidate. And then you just cascade and cascade and cascade until longs want to get long again. Okay? That's the ES. Moving on to NASDAQ. Okay? Here's your NASDAQ. It's wild. It's crazy. Let's look at it together, right? First thing we're going to look at is that profile. Profile here. Now, here's a little difference, right? You have more upside, a more completed profile. Okay? And now you can see the shift in the structure. Where the ES is, right? The ES is way above its most traded price of the week. Look at the NASDAQ. It's right on it. So right now, the NASDAQ is a little relatively weaker in structure. Okay? The ES, remember, we just saw it. It's by yesterday's highs. The NASDAQ is almost back to the midpoint of yesterday. Very key level. Remember, markets tend to go to magnet, and it's the most traded price of the week. That level's 21750. Okay. Now, same kind of level, 21503 to 214701 is your confluence low. That lines up with the most traded price of the year. That was supportive in demand in the overnight. Okay. You have another demand here with week to date, month to date VWAP. That demand. Okay. Now let's put this price action up here so we can actually see the price action. Okay. Another demand will be here. Now, this trade, this is going to make the market be difficult to trade. Okay, because they're not in sync structurally, the ES and the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is going to play around here. This is the most traded price of the week. This is the most traded price of yesterday. A lot of people have traded here. You can see the volume. Look at the volume. Right? Look at the volume. Remember, the volume profile gives you human behavior. It's the human behavior. Even if it's algos, doesn't matter. That's where the most volume is being traded. Right? It's not a moving average. It's telling me where people are putting their money. Okay? It's very important. Now, this level we have to mark off, right? With the overnight highs. Becomes a crucial level. Here's the other one. Yesterday's highs with supply zone, and where does that encompass? Last week's highs. Okay? Remember what I just said about this level. If you don't move away from this quickly, oof. Now you should generally, if you're hanging out at a most traded price, you generally are going to move away from it. Okay? You always do, right? Because the market only bases and trends. So the market has to move away. I don't know which way. But this will make it difficult. Okay? Because your ES, let's go back to it real quick. ES is over the most traded price of the week, and it's near the highs of yesterday, structurally, right? That's why I'm saying structurally the NASDAQ is different. It's not by yesterday's highs at all. Okay? All right. Let's go. Let's do it. All right. All right, I'm doing pretty decent on time, even though I started at 8:20. Okay, so all right. So what do I want to look at here? Well, I know we got support here, right? And I know we're at the most traded price of the week. What do I want to see? I want to see the Nasdaq push up, right? Even if it hits this and pulls back, as long as it holds this level and starts to move away, everybody who's traded this level is going to be in pain. And then it's the big test up here, last week's highs. Okay, this is supply, new supply and old supply. This will not be easy to crack. So you're going to probably be like, it's going to look like that. And maybe we can break out. I don't know. Okay, this is number one that I want to see. You could get a little bear trap, a real quick move down, and then you need to recover quickly to do this. That's all that's all I'm going to be interested as a long. The other one I would be is if you fall, cut through all this, which could happen, and test this level, right? Because if we find buyers here, higher lows, guess what? All shorts will have to then cover. And you could start to move back up to the mean. And then we're just in balance. That's all that we're going to be in, is balance. Balance rules, you short the highs, you long the lows until it breaks out. All right, bear side. All right. Okay, so bearish, right? Price is hanging out, most traded price of the week right now. Okay, so what I'd want to see is a push up and a fail, a rejection through these levels. Take out these single prints. Now you start to hold underneath the major levels. Okay, what am I looking for? All these longs to have to liquidate. So if you push through this, you're going to get that people puke, and then now you can start working off all the longs. And you better believe if I'm short, I'm taking profit here. Now, the gravy, gravy, maybe the whipped cream on top. I'm forgetting the expression. But if you take this out, oh my lord, that is no bueno for the markets. Okay, boom, you're gonna go. This level has to hold in order for the market to have a macro bullish view. Okay, this level is majorly important. 21435. Write it down. Okay, write it down. The Nasdaq cannot lose that level. Okay. All right, we're done. We are done. We are completed. We have our plan. Okay, we have our plan. Alrighty. Now, hopefully you enjoyed that. And give me a thumbs up and smash the like button. Smash the like button. All right. Now I have a plan. I gave you the long and short trade scenarios. Okay. Hopefully we get this plan. Remember, I always got to check out the market when it opens up, see what's driving the markets. That will determine what I want to do. That market internals will determine what I want to do. Now, you want to see my thoughts, what's moving markets, just go to my Discord. You can join my Discord, Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage and join the link. And I hope to see you there. I hope to see you there. Okay? And as always, if you haven't already, subscribe, set an alert. Why wouldn't you want to listen to me talk if you're in your car, your morning coffee? I am going to tell you what is exactly going on in the markets and why it's doing what it's doing. Right? Even if you just don't care about long or short trade scenarios, the whole beginning of my stream is general information. It's not about technical. It's very general, like what's moving markets, why are we moving, right? It really isn't very technical. Then of course it gets very technical. Okay, so join me. Okay, now everybody have a great weekend. I will not be trading Monday. All right, I will not be trading. I have a doctor's appointment, so I will probably won't even do a video that day because I gotta leave early. So everybody have a great weekend. All right, and if you don't see me on Tuesday, like if you don't see me in my Discord today, okay, then I'll see you Tuesday morning. All right, so everybody have a great weekend and good luck.